future of work. Special thanks to Adobe and the Commonwealth Club members who make this possible. If you are not yet a member, I strongly urge you to become one. We're going to be worthwhile to go through without an advertisement. Here's the forms. Please find them on the table and back, or you can go to the website at commonwealthclub.org. And we saw some of these in the back. These are the question cards. During the program, we'll have time for questions at the end. We'll encourage you to write them on cards, and staff's volunteer will circulate the audience to collect them throughout the program. The club is also proud to sponsor podcasts and broadcasts on KQAD-FM on Fridays at 8 o'clock, and KLive AM on Thursdays at 7, and Create TV at Channel 30. We'll get the button dial on Fridays at 7 p.m. For this reason, we'd like you to turn your cell phones off now. This time, my script says to pause until they give me the sign that we're going to start recording, and then we'll begin recording for radio and television. Good evening. Welcome to the program on the green economy, brought to you by the Commonwealth Club, Silicon Valley. I'm Brian Goncher, Director of U.S. Cleantech for Deloitte, and a proud sponsor of tonight's programs. I have the honor of introducing tonight's panel, and let me start with Parag Joshi. He is the, thank you, Parag, the Clean Energy Public Affairs Manager at Google, where the company has invested probably more than $1 billion now in clean energy projects, from solar and wind farms to clean tech startups around the world. He was the Oregon Press Secretary for Obama for America in 2008, and also worked at Distributed World Power, and is a graduate of Georgetown University. Welcome, Parag. Josh Green, he's part of More David Dow Ventures, and joined the clean tech team in 2006. For the past 25 years, he's helped more than 150 companies, if you're understating it probably, Josh, through success in their IPOs and their life, and currently works with a wide range of startups from lithium products and biochemicals to LED lighting. Josh graduated from UCLA and the UCLA School of Law, and is chairman and co-founder of the UCLA Venture Capital Fund with Ron Conway. Congratulations, Josh. Next is Linda Kiela. Did I get that right, Linda? Excellent. Is the Vice President of Human Resources at Solar City, the leading solar company in the United States, serving 30,000 customers in 14 states. With more than 220 years, sorry to say 200 years, maybe you're not that old, 20 years of strategic business experience. Linda was co-founder and vice president of Transform Blue, which is a mobile internet technology company, and was vice president of business operations and corporate secretary at NBX, and executive vice president and chief people officer at US Web CKS. I remember it well. It's a wonderful company. Welcome, Linda. Last but not least is Nancy Klein. She's deputy director of the Office of Economic Development for the city of San Jose, and is in charge of implementing their green vision. It's a bold 15-year plan to create 25,000 clean tech jobs, build or retrofit 50 million square feet of green buildings, and move the city to 100% renewable energy. You have a big job, Nancy. Nancy has more than 15 years of economic development experience and worked for the city of San Leandro and the San Jose Redevelopment Agency. And finally, our moderator for this evening, Allison Van Diggelen, was the host, or is the host, excuse me, of the Fresh Dialogues interview series, and is a former columnist at the San Jose Mercury News, and a contributor to KQED's California Project, California Report, and the Climate Watch. Allison, please take it away.
Thank you, Brian. This evening, we're going to address the question, where are the opportunities in the green economy? And I've picked this panel because I want to give the audience here in Silicon Valley and the audience listening on the radio a good variety of perspectives on the green economy. We have the venture capitalist perspective from Josh Green next to me here. We have the policymakers perspective from Nancy Klein. We have the corporate leaders perspective from Parag. And we have the green job makers perspective from Linda Kiel. So first, so that we're all on the same page, I'd like to start by thinking about definitions. What is the definition of the green economy, clean tech and green jobs? And I think we have Mr. Green with us, Josh Green. I think he's well qualified to answer that question. Josh.
Thanks, Allison. And I honestly did not change my name when I started investing in clean technologies as an added advantage, but I'll take advantage of it. The way I define clean tech is that it is the application of technology or it can be services that will unlock value in either the creation of energy or the use of the energy. And I look at it as creating greater efficiency, greater productivity, greater accessibility to energy by more people. Now that doesn't sound, you notice I didn't use the word green in there at all. And that was quite intentional. It actually is the productivity, creation of productivity on both sides of the equation, both demand as well as the production.
Well, thank you for that. So Nancy Klein, San Jose City has a very bold green vision to create 25,000 jobs by 2022. And the city claims to have created 8,000 green jobs. Can you describe to us your definition of green jobs?
Yes, I'm very happy to say, excuse me, that it's very close to justice. We try to take a very pragmatic approach, that it's a good or a service that creates an efficiency that meets environmental goals. And it's not as easy to track as the sound of it, because we don't, in fact, have a window into large corporations, say a Google or a Cisco, who can't extract out what that job generation is. So our 7,000 to 8,000 job number is a conservative one. But looking across the sectors, as Josh mentioned, thinking about the service end of it as well in finance, because that's very important to clean tech, green tech. But the many sectors that contribute in energy efficiency, solar being primary, building efficiencies, the finance, as we said, even in agriculture. So there's a wide array of spectrum or sectors, but we try to keep the definition pretty succinct.
Right. Now, Bragg, you manage the public affairs for Google's sustainability program. Can you give for us a description of what green means to Google and why Google has invested almost $1 billion in clean energy projects?
Sure. We look at clean energy and sustainability both as a corporate value and as business opportunity. And so for us, it's a lot of people ask, why is the search engine involved in clean tech? And the fact is that, like any company in America, energy drives our business. It's critical to our infrastructure, our data center infrastructure, and so we want that energy to be as clean as possible. But we also think there's great business opportunity, both in terms of efficiency and productivity. And we want to see the sector grow. And we've done. I think you can think about the work that we do in two ways. First is how do we make Google more efficient, more sustainable, and then how can we catalyze further and spur growth in the industry. And we've done a lot of things in both of those categories, and that's kind of how we view being a green company.
Right. Now, Linda Kiala, your company, Solar City, is riding the green wave of solar. We hear a lot about doom and gloom solar, Linda, which we'll get into later. But your company is expanding fast in the Bay Area. I understand you're hiring about 4 new employees a day nationally and about 10 a month in the Bay Area. Can you talk about that growth and what is spurring that growth?
I can't talk a lot about forward-looking growth for the company because most of you probably have read that we have done a confidential filing with the SEC for the IPO at some point. So I can't give forward-looking statements and things like that. And I apologize if some of my questions might be a bit limited today. But what I can tell you about is one of the things that have happened recently in company and growth. When I started with Solar City, which was about 2 years ago, when I was interviewing with the company, we had about 500 or 600 employees. We have over 2,000 employees today. We've added 600 employees this year alone, just since January. So we've seen some amazing growth in our company. We've kind of gone the opposite way of Cylinder and all that, and so we're going to talk about that later on, so a bit more into that if you want. But we've been flourishing and doing really well.
Great. Good. Now, I'd like the panel to help us understand the role of the ecosystem and the infrastructure, government policy on national, state, and local level. I want to start with you, Josh. Can you put things into context for us? Why is it that Silicon Valley and the Bay Area is such a hotbed for clean tech innovation and clean tech manufacturing?
Okay, I can certainly do that. If you want to talk about the policy aspects, I can go into that as well. But starting where, I mean, I think I said this out in the hallway before we started, and that is Mecca is Mecca. This is the center of technology and innovation, not only in the United States, but in the world at large. Everybody has, I'm not saying, telling anybody any news by this, but saying that this is where the ecosystem has been developed. I've been in the Valley for 32 years. I have seen the elements of the ecosystem develop to a point now where it is very much turnkey, where someone can come in from anywhere in the world and instantly have access to the best lawyers who want to work with the two guys or two gals, a computer and a dog, all at the same time to found the next great startup. And they have everything around them. They have lawyers, they have accountants, they have investors, they have space where they can go into, and everybody understands that language. And actually, this is one of the environments, and maybe one of the only ones, where it's actually turned upside down. It's seen as the cool thing is to be in the small company, not in the big company. There is an ancient thing around here known as the Taj Mahal complex. You know, when a company gets its Taj Mahal, that's the time to move to a small company. Again. So that may cause some short-term heartaches for large companies, but it is incredibly renewing, and it creates an environment that continues to thrive now in the clean technology sector. So it's perfect to put that in. One last comment about clean technology, and that is that we do not have an entrepreneurial base to look to. In my firm, when we say, well, we're really interested in investing in multiple successful clean tech entrepreneurs, the answer is there are none. Okay, it just hasn't been around that long to create multiple generations of success there. So instead, what we like to look at is an entrepreneurial cocktail, which is usually a domain expert, someone coming from a large company who seeks to create some innovation, and marrying that person up with an entrepreneur, somebody who's coming from the entrepreneurial segments of Silicon Valley, usually in the information technology arena, sometimes in the biotech arena, and then marrying that entrepreneur up with that domain expert to then go and exploit that idea and that opportunity.
We'll come back to the national policy in front of us. Let's go to you, Nancy. Talk about what the city of San Jose is doing as far as creating the right ecosystem and infrastructure for clean tech.
Thank you. There's several things. First of all, is to get out of the way, to make sure that we don't cause policy or demands that are going to inhibit activity and innovation. And then we work very much on the demand side as well as the supply side. So, and we're very, very aware of how we can put forward a building code or a green vision that will stimulate opportunity into the marketplace. For example, we created just putting into place a brand new commercial waste program, which is by far the largest in the country. And as part of that, the contract to put the trucks in place to haul is a longer time frame, and we require that a certain amount of them be electric. So that is by using the heft of our purchasing capacity and our contract capacity. So we will, on the demand side, spur innovation. On the supply side, we work very hard with the incentive programs that we have, and also what we came to find out after hundreds of conversations, literally, how important demonstration is. So the first thing that we did was create a demonstration policy so that all the city's land and buildings can be used by entrepreneurs to demonstrate their technology. And then beyond that, and perhaps later we talk a little bit about, we're just about or embarking on something called Prospect Silicon Valley, which is a demonstration center, which will have shared lab space, which will have demonstration space so that companies can come in and show and tinker, talk to their first clients, talk to their investors, work with Lawrence Berkeley National Labs, which is a major partner, or Stanford, and in technology transfer. So accelerating commercialization is something we're very committed to.
And George, we talked earlier about an innovation tax credit that you're working on. Can you describe what you're proposing on that in the context of national policy?
Sure. Just very quickly, I'll give you a little bit of background. I do a lot. Well, first of all, energy is the most heavily regulated activity, human activity. Now, I say that, and you're probably thinking out there, no, healthcare is. I hear so much about the healthcare debate and all the rest of it. The answer is actually no. It is actually energy. And that's true not only in the United States, it's true in every country around the globe. The United States is the largest country without a coherent national energy policy. But nonetheless, energy is heavily, heavily regulated. So about a year ago, I became very tired of playing defense with respect to clean energy and the national policy with respect to clean tech. And as a result, one of my colleagues, Will Coleman, and I came up with the idea of an energy innovation tax credit. And what this proposal would be, which Will has subsequently testified on both the Senate and the House side, is that it would take an industry which, and this is an amazing statistic, but spends 0.4% of its revenues on research and development. 0.4%. And for those of you here in Silicon Valley, you know that the average company here spends over 10% of its revenue on R&D. So, in order to encourage that number to get to something that was more reasonable and rational, as well as to eliminate the unfair playing field that exists with the amount of fossil fuel subsidies that are out there versus renewable subsidies, it was to go to a innovation tax credit that would not declare winners or losers. It would actually not discern between fossil fuels or renewables, for that matter. It would simply incentivize innovation. And as a result of that, it would say that you get a tax credit when you come up with a technology innovation until such time as X number of gallons or Y number of electrons, depending on the industry it was created in, would be produced and would actually be commercialized. So it would get people across, for those who know this term, the valley of death, which is the creation of the demonstration facility, the creation of the first commercial plant, and really get innovations into the marketplace so that they could compete with historic uses of technology and the rest that have not been updated for decades on a much more even playing field. We're very happy that at this point it looks like we haven't introduced the legislation yet. It is going to be supported bipartisanly in the House. I know that's a statement that no one can believe, but we'll see it when I see it. When I see it, we'll believe it. But that's what we're told, as well as bipartisan support in the Senate. We think it will ultimately get rolled up into the national debate on tax reform that will happen probably next year.
I think we all wish you well with that, Josh. Bipartisan support. So Parag Chokshi from Google, I'd like you to talk about the impact of national and state policy on Google's investments, and also talk about Google's impact on public debate. Last year, Google published a report, The Impact of Clean Energy Innovation, and it's something I wrote about and studied. They called it Google's Green Dream, and it was all about if all this innovation happened, and if the investment came into clean tech, then here's what we could do for the economy and for the environment. So if you could talk a little on these 2 points, that would be great.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I agree. I mean, I think there's not enough funding being put towards new technologies, and there's a real opportunity. I think the EIA has estimated that over the next 2 decades, the world is going to spend $26 trillion to develop, the energy technologies, the generation that we need to meet global demand. So that's a big number, and there are a lot of opportunities for this country to take advantage of some of those opportunities. And so we need, I think, public policy, national policy, state policy is critical. And Google has been supported at the state level and the national level. And that's actually part of the reason that we put out that report. There hasn't been a lot of good data about the impact of policy. And in fact, there hasn't been a lot of data comparing the subsidies that go towards fossil fuels versus what's in place. There's a lot of talk about Solyndra, but not a lot of talk about really what is the playing field. And so that report was an attempt to look over the long term, 20 years, 30 years, and see if we were to put in place a set of policies, what impact would that have on wind generation, solar generation, our electricity mix, but also EV penetration. And it's obviously there's a big push factor when you're looking that far ahead. But we found some pretty dramatic results that we can really speed up innovation and speed up the transition towards a clean energy economy by putting a national clean energy policy in place. And in terms of Google, what we've done so far, a lot of policy has really enabled us to invest.
Can you talk about specific policies that help you?
Sure. There's the tax credits that are involved with renewable energy investment, and we've invested over $900 million in the Cleantech sector, and that's helped spur our investments. And we're looking to see other companies invest as well. Google, unfortunately, is the only corporate that's not an energy company, not a bank, that's doing these types of investments, tax equity investments in clean energy projects. And we're encouraging other companies that, in fact, here in Silicon Valley, there are lots of companies that have cash that could invest, and there are some challenges that I think you have to get comfortable with the technologies, and that took us a while to do. But there are some great incentives in place right now, actually, that companies can take advantage of and earn great returns, and of course, for the development. So it's helped us put the money that we've invested into the sector, and yeah, we're hopeful that there's some challenges. As many of you know, the production tax credit is ending at the end of this year. So there's some challenges in place, but I think if we can develop a national policy, probably not until after the election, I think we can really take advantage of this growth in this industry.
So you're feeling optimistic about it?
I have to be optimistic.
You're part of the green team. Right. So Linda Kiala of Solar City, I'd like your perspective going back to the ecosystem question. Why is Solar City in the Bay Area? It's an expensive area to be. Why are you based here? Can you talk to that?
I think part of the main reason that we're based here is because the two brothers who founded the company were based here. Pretty typical of Silicon Valley companies where you start out in your garage. The company literally started out in an apartment at one of our founders in San Francisco, and he and his brother, Lyndon and Pete Riley, both lived in the Bay Area. That's how we started the company there. And then we've expanded beyond California, now in 11, 12 states, as far west as Hawaii, and as far east as Massachusetts, Iowa, New York, and I love that. So we've just expanded the company as we've seen, the opportunities to live in the state.
All right. Is it anything to do with skilled labor? Is that a factor for Solar City or not so much?
It's actually a really good question, because we went through this exercise late last year, and looking at the cost of our employees and all that. And we have this little sort of running joke in the company. We actually took a trip to Boise, Idaho. And they, recruited us really heavily and said, we know that you're expanding and the cost for your employees in the Bay Area must be really high. Boise is a great place. So we actually went on a trip to Boise. So every time we talk about the expansion and all that, it's always going to be Boise, And it was great. It was a great experience, a great place and all that. But we really have seriously looked at the cost of our employees and space in the area, office space and things like that. And I think over time what we're starting to do now in the company is we're not hiring so many employees here at HQ that we can hire and locate in our field operations. And we're basically putting some of our employees in some of the roles that can have a better touch being out in the region with the regional folks that don't have to be located here. We are moving them out to our field offices and all that, because it is very expensive and it is hard to compete. We have a lot of jobs we'll probably get into a little bit later on, but some of the jobs that we hire for are software engineers, and that's really hard for us to compete with the Googles of the world, in Silicon Valley for that kind of talent.
Right. And I promised we would get on to Solyndra. We can't really talk about Cleantech right now without talking about Solyndra. So Linda, can you explain for someone that knows vaguely that Solyndra was this big solar company that failed dramatically, How can that happen where Solar City is expanding so fast? Can you
We're really very different
explain?
companies, and, there's a lot that's been written about Solyndra and all that, so I don't want to offer too much commentary on it, but I can give you very simplistically the basic difference between the two. Solyndra was a panel manufacturer, panel technology company. That's not what we do. We provide a full service of technologies, but we don't manufacture the panels. We do all the design, the installation, the maintenance, the permitting, the full service. Once you decide that you want to buy a solar system for a solar city, we take it from there, and we do everything related to that installation and maintenance. But we don't manufacture panels, and that's the main difference between the two things.
And Josh, can you talk about this Solyndra after that?
Well, I always described it as I was looking for the day of the Solyndra half-life, not the end of Solyndra, because politicians will continue to utilize whatever they can to their own advantage out of the aftermath of Solyndra. The truth is that this is part of the Department of Energy Loan Guarantee Program that was and continues to be very controversial. However, that loan guarantee program, contrary to what you may have heard, is actually operating well within its loan loss reserves. In other words, it said certain loans are going to fail. It turns out Solyndra was one of those loans. It failed. That's what happens in a loan guarantee program. Not everyone is successful. I can point to another company that is highly successful with a loan guarantee. It doesn't play it up very much, but it's Tesla. Tesla has over $500 million loan guarantee, has started producing its own vehicles, which I understand from all the reviews is just a terrific car, terrific automobile, and is a real success story. And again, the program is operating as it intended to have, it was intended to do, and now, unfortunately, the whole Solyndra mess became a big political football, which has been tossed back and forth. The good news on all this is that we've passed the half-life. The Congress about a month ago officially stopped all of its hearings. It's over. There's not going to be any more people dragged out in front of witness tables and all the rest of it. The reason I say it's a half-life is because there will be continued efforts at passing legislation to end the loan guarantee program and to go after that. But again, this is in a highly political, contentious atmosphere in the life. But Solyndra itself is it's over in terms of an issue. As far as we're concerned, and as investors, it never was an issue. It was a company that was not successful. I've got a portfolio with lots of companies that are not successful.
It would be really interesting, Josh, for you to give us your statistics. For 100 companies you invest in, how many are successful?
Well, the old saw about venture capital is that out of 100 investments, if you have 10 that meet your investment objective, which is 10 times your money or better, then you are wildly successful. That makes you a top venture capitalist. That means you have a 90% under your expectations success rate. Now, that doesn't mean all those other 90 companies go out of business, but it does mean that some do. Some end up in what we charitably call the living dead category. They are alive, but they're not growing and all the rest of it. And some grow, but don't do this wildly aggressive number like 10x your money. They make 5x your money. And that's where the other 90 companies fall into. So, that's my business. That's what we're supposed to do.
Great. I think that gives us a good perspective. Now, I do want to get on to tips and advice for people in the audience.
Of the venture investment category more generally in clean technology, so I'm not alone in feeling this way. In the current environment, we're looking for less capital-intensive deals. So that means that we are on the side of energy demand much more than energy production, because energy production takes more capital intensive. So when you're on that side, some of the categories that Alison just mentioned are in fact the areas of focus and interest for us. Sometimes people call this Cleantech IT, or stated otherwise, a really information technology vertical in looking at clean technologies and how they can be applied. And I know Google has some significant interest in all these companies as well, and in this area as well. So in terms of specific companies for us, I'm an investor in a company called Cicato, X-I-C-A-T-O. It's an LED module company. It's shipped over 600,000 LED modules and is producing the very best LED light that is out there. There is no question, for those who might doubt it, that the LED conversion will happen. If you go to a lighting show today, you will not be able to find any other light source in any meaningful numbers other than LEDs. That's all manufacturers are showing, that's all they're going to do. So we have a lot of, I feel like this management team has done a great job, and we're looking forward to a very bright future for them as well.
What is driving the LED market?
Well, the paybacks at less than 2 years, along with the equivalency of being equivalent to halogen light, is the two factors, together with the fact that you don't have to replace an LED bulb, so to speak, for 10 years or more. And as a result, especially in commercial settings, you end up lowering your maintenance costs quite a bit. So all those factors have played into LED's rapid expansion, especially in Europe. It really hasn't taken off in this country yet, but Europe is quickly converting.
And Nancy Klein of the City of San Jose, can you give us a breakdown on the key clean tech sectors that are growing in the South Bay? We talked previously and you mentioned manufacturing as a strong area. Can you give us a few examples of companies that are manufacturing here in the Bay Area?
Yes, manufacturing is very, very exciting here, and people think that manufacturing has left the United States, but when you talk about innovation, commercialization, and it really is a hub around new product introduction, and when you think about that even a little bit deeper, it's where a manufacturer, a contract manufacturer particularly, will take a low volume but very high mix of products. So a ton of companies, in fact the 10, which are the largest in the world, or they call them Tier 1 contract manufacturers, are all here in Silicon Valley. 6 of them are in San Jose. So they're like a secret weapon resource. And what we try to do is very much link baby investors to those companies. Often venture capital has special relationships with 1 or 2 of those contract manufacturers, because you take someone with a really hot idea and then you put them with all of the accelerated services that somebody like a Flextronics or a Jabil or a Celestica, a Sanmina can do for you, and you have, if the product is good, if the idea is good, you can have a rocket in terms of acceleration. And there are a ton of companies here that also interface with the semiconductor industry, so you're putting out products in healthcare that are very interesting, that are also clean and green. You're putting out products that are in efficiency. You're putting out in manufacturing systems. And just to name a slew of companies that might be great for job opportunities, Flextronics just moved to San Jose. I'm also doing a flight commercial. SunPower, which is outside of manufacturing, but they have all of their office R&D and pilot lines in San Jose. Maxim, which is very much in the integrated systems and chips. Valent, which is a fantastic company which does measurement and control systems for manufacturing, filtration, other types of automation. And we're very proud of a deep legacy of solar in the city with Solar Junction, SunPower, SolFocus, Nano Solar. We also are very proud on the lighting side to be affiliated with companies like Enlighted, Lunera, Switch, and Philips Lumilis, all which, there's a couple of those companies that aren't in San Jose, and we really highlight not just the city, but the ecosystem that Silicon Valley is. So there is a ton. I also want to throw in there companies in clean transportation, like Halloum, if you're not familiar, charging station developer, fantastic, and also building systems like Echelon or Cypress Environmental. So that's just a small smattering, and those folks are all hiring.
Great. Good news from Nancy. So for Aug2012, I'd love you to talk about Google's investment in clean tech startups. There must be entrepreneurs in the audience saying, I would just love Google to invest in my Cleantech startup. Can you talk about the startups that Google has invested in and their investment rationale?
Sure. So I would say our investments are in two categories. There's the project investments we've done, which I touched on before, which is done out of Google's cash. And then there are venture style investments that we're doing through Google Ventures. And so Google Ventures doesn't have a specific focus on Cleantech, but they have invested in several Cleantech companies. A couple of companies, there's a really interesting company called Transform, which is trying to reduce the efficiency losses in electronics. There's another company called Cool Planet Biofuels that have developed some really interesting technology on creating biofuels more efficiently, negative carbon electricity. So there, I think in terms of our venture investments, it's a lot of the same criteria that you see for any venture fund. But we're just looking. Google is interested in innovation and innovative, sort of world-changing ideas as a company. And so those are the kinds of projects and companies we try to support, both from a ventures perspective and from our project investing. It's lending our capital to something that can really transform the sector. And on the project investing side, where I've done more work, you see that in a lot of the projects. Solar City, we've invested in.
Thank you very much.
One of the largest investments is when we've done a $280 million fund, or the Atlantic Wind Connection, which is another great example of a transformative project to build a 350-mile transmission line off the East Coast that individual offshore wind farms could fall into. It's a challenging project, really long-term project, but something that we think will be transformational. So those are
Can you give us more detail on that investment in Solar City? Why did you choose Solar City?
Sure. Solar City is growing really quickly. They've developed a great model, and it's really a way to scale. Distributed generation is in a lot of in many places around the country is already competitive, and especially when talking about resale electricity rates. So, here's an example of the proposition for a customer, Solar City customer, and you can speak more to this than I can, but is you can pay less than you're paying right now to use clean energy. And so we find that really compelling. Helping homeowners go solar is something that aligns with our values, and it makes a lot of sense.
And can you talk, Parag, about what Google is doing internally? I understand you're one of the largest, if not the largest, free electric charging station infrastructure to encourage all your employees to drive green EV cars. And you've been on the forefront of making your data centers more energy efficient. Can you talk about how Google is driving this whole internal adoption of clean and green efficiency?
Sure. Yeah, we've done a lot of work. One of the other areas I said, in terms of spurring innovation, spurring growth in the sector, we've done a lot of investing, and we're also piloting technologies on our campus. I would say that's the other big thing that we're doing. There are a lot of components to that. Our data centers, as you mentioned, we use about half as much energy as the industry average. Our data centers, you have to look at the incentives. It's about being green and also saving money. The practices that we put in place at our data centers have saved Google $1 billion over the last 10 years. So it's real money, and we're excited about some of the newest technologies that we have in place there. And we're also piloting new technologies, as you mentioned. We have the largest corporate EV charging infrastructure at our campus. And it's interesting, if you take a little bit of a step back and looking at our transportation programs as a whole, one of the reasons that we have EV chargers on campus is because we have a shuttle fleet. And that shuttle fleet transports over 4,000 employees to Mountain View. It's a biofuel-powered bus fleet. It enhances productivity of our employees. They're not sitting in traffic. It's got Wi-Fi, so you can work on
So they're
stuff.
working on the bus.
And it takes about 3,000 cars off the road, the equivalent of 3,000 cars off the road. And we developed this EV charging infrastructure really to develop a fleet of cars that our employees could use if they need to do errands around campus. So if you look at this holistically, it's saving Google money, and it's encouraging clean transportation. So we try to think long term. We try to sort of look at the whole picture when we're piloting technologies on our campus.
And Linda, can you take us inside Solar City? You're head of HR. Can you describe to the audience what are the main jobs that are available today?
Like I mentioned, we're in, I think, 13 states, so it depends somewhat state by state what kind of jobs that we have available. At our HQ office, which is here in San Mateo, we have a lot of the typical sort of corporate functions there. We have finance and the legal teams and folks like that. We have our software engineering team there. We also have our PD development team there. And then there's jobs in all of those areas in the company.
How many openings do you have right now?
Kia Walker, who is Director of Talent Acquisition here, so she knows the number better than me. What is it, Kia?
Yeah, we have about 300.
300. That's across the
A
company.
little over 600 positions so far.
Yeah. So those 300 positions that we have open now really span across the company. We have a lot of installation positions, as you can imagine, out in our field operations. We actually have a few positions available in Hawaii if anyone can go in Hawaii, let us know. So it's kind of a broad spectrum of positions, and some that maybe you don't think typically of a company that's in the solar energy business.
And remove your mic a bit closer, we're having a sound issue.
I have a big mouth, you can hear me without my phone. So I forgot where I was going, but anyway, we have positions across the company, and in pretty much any area that you can think of, and not things that you just think about solar for. Like I said, we have engineering, software engineers, accounting, customer care, positions like that.
Right, so the broad spectrum
Yeah.
of opportunities available. And we talked earlier, Linda, about some stories. I asked each of the panelists to share a story with me of an inspiring story about someone who perhaps last year was in an audience like this looking for a job or looking to transfer. And Linda, you had a great story for me about how you recruited someone. Can you share that with us?
I actually, I'm responsible for the HR function in the company, and part of that is recruiting and everything, so I take that part of my job really passionately, and so I'm constantly recruiting. I was actually at dinner in San Francisco with a couple other members of my team. We're having dinner, and we had this really great waiter, and he had this great energy and this great look and this great customer service and all that, and he kept coming back to the table and, just have a little conversation here and there, and so this is what you do at night. You're a waiter at night. I said, what's your day job? He said, well, I just finished school, and I'm not quite sure what I want to do. And I said, great. I said, come and talk to us at Solar City, because he sort of embodies the spirit of the people that we're looking for, right? I mean, he really did a great job. He was passionate about the job he did. He provided this phenomenal customer service. And, with a big smile on his face, and he just had this great energy and all that. He's hired now as one of our inside solar advisors, where folks like everyone here in the audience will call up and show interest in Solar City, and he'll work to qualify and see if you're a good candidate for solar and all that. And he's loving it. He really loves it there. The other example I think I might have talked to you about, and Josh mentioned, he remembered U.S. Web Days. I was one of the early on employees there. And Toby Corey was one of the founders of U.S. Web, and he did very well in cashing out his stock options at U.S. Web back in the day and all that. But he hadn't really been in a work environment for a number of years, like a big corporate environment and all that. And he was kind of toying with what do I want to do next and all that. And he doesn't, I'm probably not giving anything away that he probably wouldn't let you know anyway, but he doesn't have to work. I mean, he's financially secure and all that. He doesn't need to work. But he's now working at Solar City. He's our Chief Revenue Officer. And the reason that he came to Solar City is he's so passionate about what we do and how we do it and the people. And he met the founders and shared their vision. He's really passionate about the planet and the earth. He's on the Wildlife Direct Board with Dr. Richard Lucy and all that. So he has a passion for this space. so for someone like that, I call it come out of retirement, when you don't have to, you know, is, I think, another great story, and I got credit for recruiting him too. So.
And Linda, you're probably best qualified to answer the question. Do you have any tips or advice for people in the audience and those listening at home who are thinking of changing careers or getting into the clean tech space straight out of college?
How many people currently have jobs in the clean tech space? Okay, you. How many want a job in the clean tech space? Ooh, a lot more. Okay, I'll give you some of my tips. What I look for in people is the type of person that Nick was, the waiter in the restaurant that just had this great personality about him, right, where I could see that he would fit into the culture of our company. So it has to be people that just have a passion for life. They're, you know, happy, upbeat people, can provide great customer service. You don't have to have a background in green technology. I didn't. I come from the Silicon Valley high-tech world and all that. I think the most important thing that you can do to get yourself at least recognized when we get lots of resumes and all that is differentiate yourself. Tell us what it is about our company and the job that you've looked at and maybe found on the website. What is it about that job that got you inspired or made you think, yeah, I want to pick up this thing, you know, and send my resume in? Tell us why you think that you're the best candidate and what resonated for you about the company or about the job and all that. He's going to cringe when I say this, but I love getting handwritten letters or hand-typed letters from people in this day and age of technology where everything's internet and resumes come flying in and all that. I love getting that very personalized message from somebody that tells me this is who I am, this is what I think I can bring to the company. I've looked at this position online and I think I'm best suited for it because. And I love that. I love getting those letters. Sometimes I get them in, you know, real pink envelopes, I get them in FedEx, I get all kinds of different ways. And I really do love that, that personal touch. I'm not saying you all have to write me a letter or anything like that, but I do love that personalization in a somewhat impersonal world of ours. But really telling us about what it is you think you can bring to the company and what interests you about the company. Usually, you know, it touches a spot in our hearts, and we take a real close look at those kinds of resumes and letters from folks.
Great advice, Linda. Thank you. Josh, we talked earlier about a commencement speech you made for CLA. Can you share that advice?
Sure. I mean, I gave this commencement speech about 11 years ago, and I encouraged the graduates then to create both a compass in one hand and a scale in the other. The compass was to be their passion, just like Linda was talking about, as well as, and the scale was to be balance. And balancing all things in life that they went through with family, fun, fulfillment, putting all those things together into a basket, into a scale. But the compass, and as it relates really to clean technology, is the passion. It's the passion to really change the world. The reason I decided to do this in 2006 is I'd spent so long in the Valley that I was able to compare it to my days in the early 1980s. When people were truly taking metric-based technology, true innovation, and deciding whether or not to change the world or not with that. And I compared it against the late 90s, which was a go-go time around here with all the dot-coms and all the rest of it, many of which produced no lasting value. And I wanted to test it to see which was clean tech. Was it real technology, real meritorious-based change, or was it similar to the dot-com? After 6 months of doing that, I actually decided to do it on the basis that, and you may know this individual, Henry Kravis, who's the head of KKR, had just done the largest leverage buyout in U.S. history of a Texas utility called TXU, and they still own it today. And he said, how is it that you're buying TXU when you plan to close 9 of the 11 coal plants that the company has today currently? And he said, because this clean technology is going to change the world. And when a leverage buyout guy starts talking about technology, I knew that technology really had value that just needed to be unlocked. So for me personally, that's how I made my decision to come into this area, is that I really analogized it to the early 80s, right here in the blocks around downtown San Jose. And I haven't been disappointed.
Nancy Klein, can you talk to the entrepreneurs in the audience? How can entrepreneurs get assistance from the City of San Jose and your partners?
Sure, and before I do that, I just want to add in on resources and knowing your resources. For example, for the folks who raise their hand who might want to have a job in Cleantech, is taking advantage of the networks here that you can tap into. Some of them I'll mention that you're probably familiar with, but maybe haven't considered stepping into. For example, Cleantech Open, if you're not familiar with them, they're an incredible business plan phenomena, but at the same time it's a huge gathering of people who help companies, and they use a lot of volunteers. So that's a great way to meet a lot of baby companies and a lot of big companies that are investing. Solar Tech, which is an association of many, many organizations Solar City is a part of, cuts across the spectrum of folks who are in solar and financing, and also an organization that leverages a good deal of companies and resources across a broad spectrum. And then our own city resources, something called Work to Future. We serve about 250,000 people a year. It's free to anyone. It doesn't have to be that you're in San Jose, and it's really job services. If you're underemployed or you want to get yourself videoed on how to interview or job training skills, and access to incredible database systems to give you a heads up about what industries are hiring. So I would just remind you that there are networks of people here that you can take advantage of and broaden your job opportunities in a lot of different ways. And then in terms of entrepreneurial assistance, the city runs a number of different programs that work through the Entrepreneur Center, which is in downtown San Jose, where there are a tremendous number of assets to be able to look at an entrepreneur's business and look at market data, look at are you running your systems, are you looking at where you're networking, and those services are all for free. There's also an opportunity called Business Owner Space, which is a gathering of 40 different services that help companies that look at how they can fund you. Opportunity Fund, which is something that Eric Weaver, if you know him, they invest funds from California Redevelopment, which is the little R that they still are very much putting their money into. So there are really good resources with really great assistance programs, technical skills, loan access that I would highly recommend you find out a little bit more. You can easily learn about those on our website, which is sjeconomy.com.
Thank you. So, Parag, for those in the audience wanting to join Google's Green Team, can you talk about being in the Green Team, what qualities are common to people in the Green Team? And I checked last night online, there actually are 7 openings for various sustainability positions, green positions within Google. Can you talk on that, please?
Sure, yeah. I mean, we are expanding. We have positions open across a lot of different functions. And we really, Google is a very non-hierarchical place. So we have teams within a lot of different areas doing green work. And we have, we sort of informally come together. And so there are many positions available. And I think, applying to Google and for a green job, there are a lot of qualities that Google looks for in general, which is just highly collaborative, being able to be a self-starter and to work really independently and drive forward projects. But the other thing that I think is very important for Google is looking at creative solutions, thinking about creative solutions. We really value innovation, creativity in what we're doing, and it's driven a lot of the programs and initiatives that we have. So, like Linda was saying before, it's always better and more interesting when you've got a really great idea or a new way of thinking about something, and highlighting that in your passion. You're passionate about this, you thought it through. And even if it's something that we may have already done, it shows that you're thinking about new ways of doing things, and that's really valuable.
Now, we've got some questions from the audience. The first, I think, we'll address to Josh. Can you give us your thoughts on energy storage and interesting companies in the storage space?
Well, I'll give you my generalized thoughts on energy storage. I mean, it is, I think it's the most important development that could happen for our grid at the utility scale storage level, as well as in the emerging EV market. It will be the most important development to encourage the widespread adoption of of electric vehicles. And first on the grid side, we have a system, because there is no storage, that would never be tolerated in any other part of our economy. And that is, the second you produce an electron, it has to be consumed. And it just goes down the transmission lines, and it must be consumed. And when you need more, you got to produce more. And this results in quite uneconomic things like creation of peaker plants that are used for 5 to 15 hours a year, and that's the only time that those plants are ever used, usually about this time of the year, actually in August. And so storage there has the greatest potential to unlock value of almost any technological development that exists. As well, in the transportation sector, lithium-ion batteries, though they are, without question, the lightest batteries that are able to be used, they still weigh in the new Tesla Model S, I believe it's about 1,400 pounds. I'm not sure, but it's about that number. Yeah, and that's way too much. To the extent that you can get those to be a much smaller battery pack and the rest, you can unlock incredible advantage. And the cost as well. So where is that going? Well, I believe firmly for the next 10 years that lithium and lithium-ion technologies are going to be where battery and storage are focused. And for both applications, by the way, although it's a little more challenging on the grid side, but for other reasons than just weight, on the grid utility scale side, lithium-ion technologies are very interesting. There are a number of companies in this area. There are probably, I'm going to say, I'm just guessing right now, but probably 50 to 60 venture-backed companies inside the Bay Area that are focused on advanced battery technologies. It would be unwise for me to pick any real winners out of that. And in fact, we've been challenged in finding an investment that we really could get behind. But one company we did decide to invest in is a company that is extracting lithium out of geothermal brine. And what it does is it takes, as geothermal brine comes up, it delivers a bunch of mud to that is ultimately turned into steam for the generation of the geothermal plant. And as that mud goes through the plant, it's then going to go back down into the earth. But in it, in the Salton Sea in Southern California, it has large deposits of lithium. And as a result, we take that out before it goes down those pipes and process it through our factory and extract the lithium. We also extract manganese and zinc. But we do that as the world's lowest cost lithium producer in the world, lower than Chile, Argentina, and China. We also do it with the best environmental footprint. We don't use water. We don't use added electricity to heat things up. We don't have to use nearly the other elements that the other manufacturers do. So we as a firm, more David out, have decided to invest in the production of lithium because we do believe that this is going to be a technology that's here to stay for at least the next 10 to 15 years and will help fuel this storage building.
Now we have a question for Nancy. Is Silicon Valley doing enough to be the leader in Cleantech, or are we falling behind other cities and areas?
That's a great question. I think we're doing a lot. I think we capitalize on the notion that we have early adapters and adopters here that make it very feasible. I think the state, even though we're struggling so with the legislation that's passing, very much now the cap and trade considerations will be very powerful. And if we can get cap and trade passed, then that will turn, the estimates are conservatively somewhere between $1 billion and $4.5 billion on an annual basis back into investments in clean tech and reduction in carbon. So that's a huge advantage, AB 118 in clean transportation. So I think we're doing a lot, but clearly other nations like China, other areas in Europe that are spending a lot more, putting their money where their mouths are is very powerful. So we have to be very careful.
What more would you do if you had unlimited resources as a city in present day? What would you do, knowing what you know about clean tech and what it means?
Some of the things we focus on, of course, are buildings and building efficiency because that takes so much of energy in our world. And we would love to see programs which was previously known as PACE, but basically taking the investment of your efficiency infrastructure and making it sort of like a home mortgage so that it runs with the property. And would you apply that scale on an industrial basis as well as the housing? That would be an innovation on the finance side that would open up a lot of windows in terms of scale for companies who are doing that kind of business, and also in clean transportation. That's the other side of that so much of the taking out the diesel, taking out so much of the gasoline that we would bring the cost differential. Josh was talking about investments that would get to renewables like we've gotten to fossil fuels. That if we could do those two things, we'd have our 50 million square feet of buildings in the city, and you'd have we're not building as much now because of the economy, but if you could really impact what exists and what's running around in between buildings, we would be skyrocketing.
And I should just add that this is one of the most important investment categories for us in terms of looking forward, is buildings as well. We think that there's tremendous value to be unlocked through the application of technology to what have really not been very smart buildings up to this point, although Google's probably doing the best of that.
That segues nicely into an audience question for Parag and Linda. Does Google or Solar City have any ongoing programs to promote green energy conservation in houses and in offices?
We do have, so actually we've done some work. I think energy information, access to information, and energy IT infrastructure in buildings is usually important. We've done some work. We had a product called Power Meter that we had developed that was just a beta sort of program, but it allowed people to get a window into their energy use, and it wasn't real time, and there's still some challenges to getting real-time information about your energy use, but a lot of studies show that just having access to the information alone will lead to 10-15% savings. So we've done some work there, and at our office spaces, we're doing a lot of work on green buildings, everything from just natural lighting to free cooling at our data centers.
What do you mean by free cooling? Can you explain what that means?
Sure. So most data centers will use industrial chillers, basically industrial air conditioners to cool servers. And what we've done is using evaporative cooling, you can achieve a lot of the same cooling results without the use of sort of carbon-intensive air conditioning units. So in our data center in Finland is a great example. It's on the Bay of Finland. We use seawater. It's actually in an old paper mill. So it's a creative solution to set a data center there. And the piping is already in place, and we pump seawater in. It cools our servers, and then it's pushed back out. So it's a closed-loop system that comes in and goes back out. And obviously we make sure that we're not changing the temperature of the bay when we do that. But it's an innovative way of both reducing our energy costs and doing it in a more environmentally friendly way. We've also done a lot in our buildings. Just run the gamut, but very simple solutions. I think there's a lot of low-hanging fruit. Everything from one great example is carpet tiles. We've done a lot. All of our buildings have tiled carpets, so if there's a spill, you don't have to replace the entire sort of carpet. You just take that piece and replace it. So a lot of solutions like that that are actually pretty simple, pretty cost-effective, and can really improve building efficiency.
Linda, can you talk about solar grading?
Yeah, we met